Hi Roger, it's Ray over at Cigar Climatology. Hey, sorry about the length of time it's taken for me to get you a video. The previous one that I'd made for someone else really wasn't too appropriate to you, so I decided to make you one from scratch. Bear in mind please that I'm not a professional video maker, as you'll see. These things are pretty low budget for my end, but it should give you an idea, and the reason why I made it is to give you an idea about really how a controlled system should work. Today's really not the best day. First off, I'm sick, so if I cough a lot, apologize. Next, it's really not very warm in here, so you don't really see a very good representation of how well one of my humidors works. Behind me is, this is one of my test humidors. This is an old guy. I've had this humidor for the better part of 10 years now, or this wine cooler. And it's got holes drilled in it, and it's been reworked, I don't know, at least 10 times. It's been reworked a lot. But it represents close to my latest generation. This is about a Generation 9 cooler. I'm currently working on Generation 11. My standard cooler is running at Generation 10. So this one's a little behind the times, but like I said, I use this as a test box. I use it to test appliances and fan speeds and all kinds of just new things. Now it is a working humidor. It's got cigars in it. It's got my frauds collection in it, and just a bunch of junk. If I get a box of cigars, I got nowhere to stash it. I throw it in here. It's kind of a mess on the inside. I also data log it a lot, so all the instrumentation and junk that you see on it, it's just a matter of a guy constantly working on humidors, looking for better results. So that's the reason why there's so much junk in and around it. So let me introduce it to you here real quick. The controls, etc. Now, taking a step back, bear in mind I control this humidor from the outside, and I do it externally for a reason. I do it this way because I'd rather not have to go on the inside to change the settings on the controllers constantly. So if I'm tinkering with something or doing something, it makes more sense for me to not have to upset the insides of the humidor and start all over again by trying to test something. So I run it through an external controller, which I call a simulator. And the simulator meaning that what I can do is I can manually or switch the controller on and off, or I can set it to an auto function, which just means the controller is acting like it should. I'll explain more a little bit later as we go through this. So the first thing we're going to do, since I'm going to open the controller or going to open the cooler, is I'm just going to manually turn the controller that's working the humidor off. So let's do that first. If you don't see really what I'm doing here, it's not that important. I'll zoom into it a little bit. But and like I said, bear in mind the inside of the cooler is pretty junky. Okay, it's got my frauds collection. I keep a bunch of my data loggers in here just to keep them clean and keep them out of the dusty environment. But this is basically the inside. And like I said, I apologize. It's not a good representation because it's A, a mess, and B, I do a lot of testing in it. So it's got a lot of wires, it's got a lot of instrumentation that you wouldn't normally see inside one of these guys. But that's the cooler basically. And like I said, it's got, I don't know, looks like several boxes of cigars. So there's maybe 250 cigars in here at any one given time. And yeah, I do smoke out of the cooler as well because it keeps cigars very, very well. So I'm going to go ahead and close this up. You've at least taken a gander at it and seen what it looks like. Oh, and if we go back here for a second, this would normally be the controller that would run this cooler. So normally, if you wanted one say stashed on the inside, this is at least the way mine are. So this is the controller that would normally control the cooler. But since, like I said, I gave you the reason. Since I don't want to control it from the inside, I want to control it and be able to simulate controls from the outside. So let's take a little closer look at what we're going to focus at here as my head disappears from view. And I'm going to zoom in on this guy a bit and talk a little bit about what we've got going here on top. Now, first and foremost, really is this controller right here. This controller represents what's going on currently in the humidor. These four switches represent the four axes of control that I also control with this controller. One would be cooling, the next would be heating, this would be adding water, and the last would be dehumidification or taking water away. Now, you're probably wondering what all this junk is over here. These are old controllers I use to get an idea about how warm the shop is, etc. This particular controller here on top is showing me that at this altitude it's 72 degrees F inside the shop. That's B1. And the B2 probe is actually stuck down inside the front of the cooler, and it shows that by the door here it's 68.4. This other controller right here, this guy is currently connected to that sensor. So they're different types of sensors. I'm not going to go into the pros and cons of each, but this is actually a sensor which is more similar to what I actually use inside the coolers themselves. So this sensor is showing that it's 47 RH in here. B1 it's 71.2 and right about 47 RH. Now, just for giggles, I'll show you how sensitive these things are, and that again, the B2 setting is the RH at 46. If I as much as go up here and hold my hand next to the sensor, it will probably start reading the moisture off of my hand. And as it goes from 46 to 47, let's look at it again, B2, 47.8, 47.9. You'll notice it's changing. 48. That's simply because of the moisture that's coming off the ends of my fingers. So when you're talking about really accurate and sensitive controls, this is kind of a demonstration on why I use what I use, and that there is a difference between what I call lizard cage controllers or beer brewing controllers and the products and equipment that I use. There's a considerable difference. So the first part of the experiment here, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at basically where the humidor is settled. Now, so you understand exactly what we're talking about here. Let's zoom in here a little bit more. Oops, sorry. Now, so you understand the language of the controller. B1 is the temperature sensor, and B2 is the humidity sensor. So currently inside the humidor it's reading B2, that's 61.2 RH, and B1 at 69.3, 69.4 Fahrenheit, okay? Since it's cool in here, this controller is currently asking, you'll look here and you'll see the number 2 is lit. You might not be able to see that very well. A little further. Number 2 is lit. Well, this is number 2, and what it is, I'm going to put number 2 over there to auto. Number 2 is the heater. So what the controller is currently telling me is that 69.5, the current temperature, is a little cooler than what I want it to be inside the humidor currently. So it's currently asking to go ahead and heat the inside of the humidor, which I'm going to allow it to do. So I went ahead and turned it on. All these other switches here, these have been turned off, and I'm going to go ahead and switch them to auto here real quick. Now, so they're on auto. What would happen if we decided that we wanted to go in and we wanted to grab a cigar? This will give you an idea exactly how rapid air exchanges are. Now, you're not going to see me open the door. You might hear it because of the fans, but let's go ahead and open the door and you just watch, and we'll see what happens. So there's the door open. Now remember, it's 47 RH over here. I'm pointing at one of the other ones and you can't see it. But you're watching how rapidly now the RH dives because the door's open. Okay, so this is a real-time control. Now you'll also notice here this little number 3 has come on. The number 3 now means that my active humidifier is running. So let's say I went in and I grabbed a box of cigars and a box of DuRoys. So now the box of cigars is out. And close it, and I'm going to choose my cigar. Now I've created all kinds of turmoil for the inside of the humidor. As you can see, I've run it down into the 50s simply by opening the door. Let's see what the humidor does in order to correct this situation. Now bear in mind, like I said, so you can understand the coding here, number 3 is on because that is the active humidifier. So let's see what happens. You can see how fast the active humidifier has run the RH back up inside the humidor. Now, because we got it so dry and because my humidifiers work so quickly, I want them to react very, very quickly. We do run into a situation which is called overshoot. Okay? Overshoot's what you're experiencing now. You can see number 4 is popped on here. That means the cooling cycle is running in order to dehydrate. So the dehydration cycle is running. And what it's doing, and you can see it, it has trimmed B2, it has trimmed the RH off the top inside the humidor to try and bring it down within the realm where it will no longer bounce between set points. So we're going to see the RH settle a little bit. We've opened the door, we've gotten a cigar, and where are we? We're right back essentially to where the humidor is supposed to be in the first place. Now to show that to you, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to press the set button. And the set point, set 1, this is the set point. So this is what I have the temperature set at. This is where the humidor wants to be at all times within some realm of, you can't keep the humidor exactly at 70. It's impossible. Okay, like I said, these systems are not perfect. Nobody's are. So you want to keep it in a realm of 70, and you want to keep it in a realm of what your set point 2 is, which is my RH. And this is currently set at 60.2. Okay? Now, if I wanted to change that, that's easy enough. You can see I can change the set points relatively easy. That's not that big of a deal. So right now, we're just back in a regular mode again. And you can see the humidor, while it's heating, it's the number 2 is still on. It would like to slowly bring the temperature back up towards 70. That's it. The air exchange. I've really done nothing bad with. I've really done nothing bad with the cooler by simply going in and getting a cigar. You can see how rapidly changes can take place when you have an air exchange, and how rapidly a fully automated cooler will make adjustments for that change. What else could we do with it? Let's overhydrate it and see what happens, because a lot of my customers are interested in my particular products because I'm one of the only guys who actually will allow you to adjust your cigars from a net RH positive environment or a high RH environment. So if you live, I know you live in Australia. One of my Australian clients suffers a lot with heat and humidity during your summer, and he was losing smoking quality over the summertime due to the fact that once the RH, once the water worked itself into his humidors, he couldn't get rid of it until wintertime, until it started to dry out again. So one of the important aspects of a fully controlled humidor is being able to take advantage of it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch everything but the heater here off, just for the sake of example. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and trip the humidifier. In other words, I'm going to run it manually. Let's see where we start. We're starting here at B2 is 60.6. So I'm going to go ahead and run it from the 60.6 mark, and we'll give you a demonstration of how fast the active humidifier works inside of this guy. The B2 at 60, 61. Like you said, you're going to see it running away really, really quickly. Okay. We'll run it up to 70 RH just for the sake of argument. See what happens. We'll let it keep going. 65, 66. It will overshoot some, so at 67 about, we'll go ahead and turn it off, because it'll probably overshoot up to close to 70. So you can see now at this point in time, if it were really humid in my shop, by opening the door, let's say I really drove the humidity extremely high, and I have, it's now 68 in there. Well, there is of course something called equilibrium, and the insides of the humidor are pretty much set more around 60 than 70. Plus I have another appliance in there that's currently running. It's an active bead silo. I'm not going to go into that, but that's one of the things that's actually drying the environment currently. But if you look here, you'll see a number 4 lit. This number 4 means that this controller is asking to dehumidify the device. So we're going to go ahead and put that on auto. And what happens is the dehumidification cycle is now started. Now what we're going to do is we're going to kick everything else here on auto as well, so you can just get an idea about what the humidor is going to do to control itself, to bring itself back down into the realm of where it needs to be. Now you'll actually notice, B2, that it's drying much more rapidly. Let's watch the B2 setting. 63, it's going down to 62. That's because the humidor is now intentionally dehydrating. It's going to get down within the realm of the set point and it's going to shut off. Now, because it ran this protracted cycle, it will actually probably over dehumidify. This is something which we call overshoot. And it's just something that you live with inside of a controlled humidor. The idea though is to use it to your advantage and to understand it and to really try and control it. Now whether this overshoots or not, we'll see. 69.5. If it's settled at 69.5, it doesn't look like it's going to overshoot. So there, 69.5. That was a demonstration basically of what happened if it was too humid in here when we opened the door. Remember, going back to the set point, set point 1, that's at 70. Set point 2 is at 60.2, and our B2 is at 59.8. So what I've done in this short time, I wish it was hotter in here because it'd give you a good showing of how well the cooling system works. But because it's cool in here, really what we've done is we've used the heater inside to bring the temperature back up, and you'll notice the temperature now is 69.8. The number 2 is no longer here, so the heater inside has actually turned it off. In the short period of time that we've tinkered with it, the heat has come back up into the realm of what we're going to call a stable humidor. So we've opened it, we've put cigars in and out of it. We'll go ahead and put this box of cigars back. We've closed it, we've tinkered with it, we've run tests on it, and look at where it's at. It's right around 70 degrees, right where it's supposed to be. And as you can see, just that small air exchange, that opening of the door for that quick period of time, has lowered the RH. The 3 was on there momentarily. Bring the RH back up. There it is. Because the humidifiers work so quickly, the humidifier is overshot. That's okay. It's not that big of a deal. As you can see, the humidity is going to drop right back down to where it's supposed to be. It's slowly bleeding off, 61 or 62. Now I'm down to 61.9. 61.6. I believe the humidifier or the dehumidification is currently locked out, and that's okay. But here we go. Pretty much right back where we started. So we've really raised some hell inside the humidor by opening and closing it. We've screwed around with it by pumping too much water into it. And where am I left? 69.9, 61.1. That's a demonstration for you, mate. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sorry that it's taken so long. I'll go ahead and upload this to YouTube and I'll send you a link. Thanks for your interest. Bye-bye.